I mean, yes, but I think that the problem is that there's going to be a sort of two tones, two senses to the term. And if you were to come out in one sense that you think is rational and reasonable and appropriate, it will just be misrepresented as the other sense when attacking you. And so I don't think that we should be promoting hate in any way, shape, or form. Personally, I think the idea of like hating something is just destructive to one's own soul. I think we are perfectly capable of fighting back against social justice by just being good people and like actually addressing the things that they're doing, rather than developing a kind of pathological loathing of them that leaves us at the mercy of our own emotions in the same way that they are at the mercy of their own emotions. I don't see how that's helpful to like any, I guess we'll just call the right wing, in any way, shape or form. I think that just turns us into a mirror image of them, which is what they would love because they can't win on the virtues because they don't have any. And so what they're trying to do is drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. So don't fall for it.
I somewhat disagree. I mean, it depends on how you define the term "hey," of course.
Why are there always people who say, "Oh, Callum never disagrees with Carl"? You disagree with me all the time.
I'll do it more then.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, but it depends how you do the term. Because, I mean, you described it there as a pathological sort of obsession.
Hatred becomes pathological. Yeah.
But in the sense that you can't really think for yourself. You're just like, all right, that's bad. I hate that.
You're just being driven by your emotions.
But the thing that comes to mind immediately is Christopher Hitchens describing himself as an anti-theist and how he hates religion with a passion.
Yeah.
And then take specifically Islam, for example, because he saw that as the biggest threat and the worst one. Doctrinally, and then to say that he shouldn't be free to hate Islam, of course, leads you into the kind of laws that we have.
No.
in the UK.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be free to do anything. You know, this.
I know, but if you define hate instead of that irrational sense, because Christopher Hitchens wasn't irrational in his disagreements with Islamic doctrine, it was just an intense dislike. Like,
sure.
If you have that as the definition,
sure,
but
the problem is framing it in the term of hate. It implies a irrational, emotional reaction that. I don't, and I think that indulging in that kind of thing, maybe it's just the stoic in me who's like, that's not the way to handle this. You know, it's not even about the opposition. It doesn't matter what it is.
Who's for irrationality though?
Well, that's the point, right? You want to have. It's more about your lack of control of yourself. Because when you find yourself hating something, you kind of lose your ability to moderate and mediate your own responses to that thing. And I really disagree with that.
I understand, but if I was ever to use the phrase like I hate religion, it wouldn't be I just hate it irrationally. It would be I have an intense dislike of religion.
Sure. And that it will doubtless be a sensible way of doing it, but there are multiple senses in the way of we can describe hate.
Maybe intense dislike just I mean, if you think the word hate has been subverted too much.
Well, no, it's not even that it's been subverted, but I think that it can just be used in a kind of sense. And like, you know, this is like, you know, something that's prevalent in literature, you know, where you get people with, you know, irrational hate. So, like, I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't think it's a wise strategy. And I think that in and of itself it is wrong to hate things. I personally think that that's destructive to yourself. And I don't think you should be destroying yourself. I think you should be building yourself up.
It's sort of like saying the antonym to love things is also irrational though.
Well, it is. Having like a deep and abiding love is irrational.
Can certainly be rational, surely. But we'll do that philosophical.
Well, that's the point though. You're not like you don't rationally like love your spouse. You know, it's a magic. It is something that's irrational.
An intense like of the thing. Well, there can be a lot of advantages to your spouse. You know,
I'm not. Yeah, no. I'm not saying it's
this debate could probably go much wider. Is all I'm thinking.
It's all right. It's all right. Like, I'm not saying it's inherently wrong, but at least on the subject of love, it's a positive emotion, right? So if you irrationally happen to love, like, you know,
well, that's just as destructive.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think that's true, you know, and I think that is in many ways fulfilling. You know, I rationally love my kids. I love spending time with them.
The Islamists have got an irrational love for Islam.
Yes. And in their proper place, as in the Middle East, that's fine. They can. Well, no, I wouldn't go to, you know, Arabia and say, right, you're not allowed to love Islam. You know, that's.
Well, you know, what do they do with that love?
Well, I don't care as long as they stay over there.
Right.
Like, not my problem.
Well, I'm getting into philosophical.
No, I appreciate it, but then you start getting into, well, that justifies us going over there and doing something. No, leave them over there, right?
Yeah,
exactly. But the point is, like, an irrational love is at least a sort of, you know, nurturing, wholesome, upward pushing momentum, rather than hatred is just degenerating and degrading. And it's degrading to you, it's degrading to the thing you're misrepresenting with your irrational hate, you know, and I just don't think it's the way forward.
Again, irrational hate. I'm not in my head. I don't think of it as an irrationality, but instead just an extreme dislike. And the thing that's ultimately making me suspicious of this idea is that if we lived in a different time and place, we might agree instantly. But the fact that the British government has rules on the books against inciting hatred, and these have been interpreted, I think, correctly as written, and that's led to miscarriages of justice. I mean,
well, I wasn't even thinking of that, to be honest.
well, I think it's not directly inciting to hatred with Count Dankula, but it was argued that he was inciting hatred against Jewish people. And it's like, you could argue that fundamentally. I'm not saying he's right or wrong, the judge arguing that, or lawyer, but the idea that you criminalize an emotion, an extreme dislike
it's
of a
wrong,
thing,
obviously.
and it's like, is that enough, really? Is that really where we want to go, where this is something that's off limits?
Well, no, I totally agree. And I'm not saying that, people don't have moments of hatred for things, right? When you hear about like a pedophile or something, it's totally normal to have like this emotional upswelling because, if you're a very sympathetic person, you think, oh, what happened to that poor child? And then you can totally understand it. But the problem is if you commit to this in an intellectual way, you start to nurture it and it starts to grow. And then I think you find yourself in a kind of prison that you can't escape. And I don't think that's wise. I think self-control and, a rational opposition to these things. And even if it's not necessarily a rational opposition that is outside of the bounds of being hateful is good. And that's not to say we should give an inch to the commies or anything like that. Obviously we shouldn't, right? Don't give them an inch under anything, but don't be hateful about it. Just be firm and paternal about it, I think is the most sensible way.
Fundamentally, I think comes down to a disagreement.
But this is the point of the senses in which the word's used. But the thing is, I think one sense can bleed into another very easily.
Well, that's my problem with it, which is the hate crimes as a concept.
Oh, absolutely,
entirely.
I'm against. I'm against that.
But I think that's if you take your position, then that you can lead into that quite easily.
Yeah, but I mean on a personal level about the way that you approach the world. Even if you're like, well, no, it's rational for me to hate this. Like eventually, I think it bleeds into a sort of irrationality that you can't escape because the habit you form becomes an unthinking behavior. So you just, unthinkingly do this, and then suddenly you're just like a spiteful, hateful mutant, like the left wingers that we're opposing. You don't want to become like that. You want to become more noble and proud and confident and able to control yourself. Don't be like them. That's what I would say.
I agree on that, but
of course.
Your definition of the word, I disagree.
Well, like I said, it bleeds in. I don't think there's a hard line between the two.
Difficult subject.
Yeah,
we'll leave it there.
Okay,
let's go to the next one. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go over to lotuseaters.com to subscribe to get access to all the premium content we have.
The way the site works is that you have bronze, silver and gold tier subscriptions. The bronze being £5 a month and allows you to get access to all of the premium content and leave comments on the articles. And we've got a new feature for the silver tier, and the silver and gold tier, which is having all of the premium articles accompanied by an audio track of a very smooth British voice reading, as you can see on the screen there. It's only an 11-minute listen, or it's however long it takes you to read the article. So that's for convenience. So that's for gold and silver members. And we've also got all of our regular great content, which we're all really proud of. I mean, the premium podcast we have here is Progressing to Destruction, where that's just a lot of work where it went into examining exactly what the consequences of mass immigration have been in Britain. And this was a great deal of effort to put together, and we didn't really want it being taken down from YouTube or anywhere else, so we're hosting it on our site, and we're very pleased with, well, what is, I suppose, a bit of a negative response, but not because of anything we've done, but because of the facts of the matter, it seems. But we also do various other premium podcasts, like The Contemplations, such as Are There Human Rights? Well, it depends on whose definition of what a human right you are using is. And of course, we do our regular history podcast called Epochs. This week's was The Sea People, the Terror of the Bronze Age. I really enjoyed doing this one because there was a great collapse about 3,000 years ago of the entire economy of the Eastern Mediterranean, and it seems that a bunch of piratical raiders may have been partially responsible for that, and possibly inspired the Trojan cycle from Homer. So we discussed that in that. And of course we do our book club. For some reason I decided that we'd highlight the George Orwell ones that we've been doing. So we've got his Road to Wigan Pier and of course the classic 1984. And I'll probably do Shooting an Elephant next. Have you ever read that?
Not heard of it.
It's really interesting. It's about George Orwell's time as a colonial administrator and police officer in Burma. And at one point in his narrative, an elephant goes on the rampage in a village and it's killing people and destroying houses. So he has to go down and shoot it. And it is an absolutely fascinating look at the sort of colonial dynamics. The reason I haven't done a book club this month so far is because I'm currently going through the Critical Race Theory Bible. As you can see, it's 500 pages long and I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And there are going to be many very in-depth book clubs coming out of that because the things they believe are crazy and conservatives need to know about them.
But anyway, if you'd like access to all that premium content, please go over to lotuseaters.com, subscribe. Thank you.